ძვირფასო სტუმრებო, გთხოვთ დაბრძანდეთ და ოფიციალურად გავხსნათ ჩვენი სამიტი. Dear guests, please take seats and we're going to start the summit now. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and honorable representatives, plenipotentiary and extraordinary His Excellency Mr. Ambassador, distinguished partners, donors, we would like to express my warm welcome and cordial welcome to this event, the first international summit on protected areas of Georgia. We are definitely privileged to have you all here from more than 15 countries and more than 70 delegates coming to Georgia in order to make a esteemed gathering and to talk and discuss about protected areas of Georgia, of the world, the natural treasure of our countries. We are definitely privileged that within this very esteemed event dedicated to the comprehensive examination of the foundational pillars of protected areas policy will take place, we will have an opportunity to discuss the issues related to many paramount topics like wildlife protection, conservation of nature, sustainable financing, sustainable community livelihood, and many others. We are really happy to have experts, practitioners, world national park leaders coming to Georgia to discuss these topics, which are of utmost importance for all our countries. Herewith, I would like to welcome my gratitude and also my thanks to all our partners, especially in global conservation, for their devotion and dedication, for their support to organize this event together with us, Agency of Protected Areas and Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, and our long-standing partners, Sabuco, Caucasus Nature Fund, Global Environmental Facility, as well as UNDP and Bank of Georgia. Here is our thanks to the USAID Economic Security Program for standing together with us. I will not continue too long as I want to deliver my word and to ask our distinguished guests to come and welcome the participants. First, I would like to ask Mr. Yuri Nozadze, the Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, to stand in front of the delegates and to welcome. Please.
Kalbatonebo და ბატონებო, ძვირფასო სტუმრებო, მოგესალმებით. გარემოსდაცვისა და სოფლის მეურნეობის სამინისტროს სახელით მივესალმები დიპლომატიური კორპუსის წარმომადგენლებს, მოწვეულ სტუმრებს ამერიკის შეერთებული შტატებიდან, გერმანიიდან, კორეის სახალხო რესპუბლიკიდან. მივესალმები ყველა მონაწილეს, განსაკუთრებით დიდ მადლობას გადავუხდი, მივესალმები და განსაკუთრებით დიდ მადლობას გადავუხდი დონორი ორგანიზაციის წარმომადგენლებს, რომელთა გვერდში დგომით და მათი დახმარებით ჩვენ წლებია ვანვითარებთ და ვაძლიერებთ დაცული ტერიტორიების ქსელებს. დღეს უნიშნელოვანესი დღეა ჩვენი ქვეყნის ისტორიაში. მოგეხსენებათ, ბორჯომი მასპინძლობს დაცული ტერიტორიების საერთაშორისო სამიტს. მინდა გითხრათ, რომ ეს ამ სფეროში ასეთი მასშტაბური ღონისძიება საქართველოში იმართება პირველად. ჩვენთვის ძალიან ემოციურია, დიდი პატივია ჩვენთვის უმასპინძლოთ ასეთი მაღალი დონის, მაღალი რანგის სტუმრებს. სამიტზე 15-ზე მეტი ქვეყნიდან 70-მდე დელეგატია უცხოელი სტუმარი. საერთო ჯამში სამიტს 200-მდე მონაწილე ყავს. მათ შორის არიან პროფესიონალები, როგორც აკადემიური წრიდან, ისე პრაქტიკოსები, რომლებიც მართავენ ეროვნულ პარკებს სხვადასხვა ქვეყანაში, რომელთაც ექნებათ შესაძლებლობა სამიტის ფარგლებში გაუზიარონ ერთმანეთს საერთაშორისოდ აღიარებული ის საუკეთესო ცოდნა და პრაქტიკა, ის თანამედროვე ტექნოლოგიები და მართვის პრინციპები, რომელიც გამოიყენება დღეს ეროვნული პარკებისა და ზოგადად დაცული ტერიტორიების მართვის პროცესში. და ასევე ვიმსჯელებთ ამ სფეროში არსებული გამოწვევების შესახებ და მისი გადაჭრის გზებზე. მათ შორის, რა თქმა უნდა, გლობალური კლიმატის ცვლილების შერბილებაზე. შესაბამისად, დღეს საქართველო წარმოადგენს ამ სფეროში გამოცდილების გაზიარების ეპიცენტრს, რითაც ჩვენ ძალიან ამაყები ვართ. ეს ნიშნავს იმას, რომ სამიტზე სესიების კონკრეტული პანელების განხილვების შედეგები მნიშვნელოვან როლს ითამაშებს ჩვენს სამომავლო ყოველდღიურ საქმიანობაზე, სხვადასხვა სახის დაცული ტერიტორიების მართვის მეთოდების დახვეწაზე, მათ კონსერვაციას და განვითარებაში, კლიმატის ცვლილების წინააღმდეგ ბრძოლაში. გარდა ამისა, მოხარული ვარ, რომ ვიმსჯელებთ ასევე ეკოტურიზმის სხვადასხვა მიმართულებით განვითარებაზე, ვიმსჯელებთ ადგილობრივ მოსახლეობასთან სწორ კომუნიკაციაზე, მათ კეთილდღეობაზე, ინტერესების დაცვაზე და მათ ჩართულობაზე ეკოტურიზმში, რაც ჩვენთვის, ჩვენი სამინისტროსთვის პრინციპულად მნიშვნელოვანია. სამიტი კიდევ ერთი მიზნის გამო არის უპრეცედენტო, მიუხედავად იმისა, რომ ჩვენი რეგიონის, კავკასიის, თუნდაც აღმოსავლეთ ევროპის ქვეყნებთან ჩვენ ძალიან მჭიდროდ თანამშრომლობთ ბიობრალო ფეროვნების დაცვის კუთხით, მაგრამ ასეთი გაფართოებული შეხვედრა მრგვალ მაგიდასთან ჩვენ არ ქონია შესაძლებლობა, რომ დამსწარიყავით და გვესაუბრა ჩვენი საერთო გამოწვევების შესახებ. მე მხარული ვარ, რომ ბორჯომის სამიტი ამის შესაძლებლობას გვაძლევს. მიუხედავად იმისა, რომ ჩვენი რეგიონი არც თუ ისე დიდია, მაგრამ გვაქვს მრავალფეროვანი ეკოსისტემა და შესაბამისად ამ ეკოსისტემის მართვის პროცესში ჩვენ ასევე ჩამოგვიყალიბდა ასე ვთქვათ მრავალფეროვანი გამოცდილება, რასაც რა თქმა უნდა ერთმანეთს გაუზიარებთ სამიტის ფარგლებში. რაც შეეხება კონკრეტულად საქართველოს, მინდა გითხრათ, რომ ჩვენი ქვეყნისთვის ყოველთვის პრიორიტეტი იყო ბიომრავალფეროვნების დაცვა, მისი კონსერვაცია და ზოგადად ბუნებრივი სიმდიდრის, ჩვენი ქვეყნის უნიკალური ბუნებრივი სიმდიდრის შენარჩუნება და დაცვა. მაგრამ უნდა აღვნიშნო, რომ ბოლო პერიოდში ეს კიდევ უფრო მეტად აქტუალური გახდა, რაც გამოიხატება იმით, რომ ბოლო 10 წლის განმავლობაში ჩვენ საქართველოში 400,000 გექტარს მიენიჭა დაცული ტერიტორიების სტატუსი. რაც იმას ნიშნავს, რომ სტატუსის მინიჭებამდე ძალიან ასეთი მნიშვნელოვანი კვლევები გაიარა კონკრეტულმა ტერიტორიამ და შესაბამისად ჩვენმა სპეციალისტებმა მიიღეს გარკვეული გამოცდილება. საერთაშორისო მიღწევებიდან აუცილებლად აღსანიშნავია 2021 წელს იუნესკოს მიერ მინიჭებული, იუნესკომ მიანიჭა 4 დაცულ ტერიტორიას, ასე ვთქვათ, კოლხეთის ტყეებისა და ჭარბტენიანი ტერიტორიების სახელით შევიდა სოფლიოს მემკვიდრეობის ნუსხაში. ასევე 2022 წელს, გასულ წელს საქართველოში პირველად 2 დაცულ ტერიტორიას მიენიჭა ბიოსფერული რეზერვატის სტატუსი. ასე რომ ამ გამოცდილებით, ამ ცოდნით ვართ არის აღჭურვილი ჩვენი სპეციალისტები, რომელსაც რა თქმა უნდა თქვენ გაგიზიარებენ თავიანთ გამოცდილებას. ხაზგასასმელია, რომ ჩვენი ქვეყნის ბიომრავალფეროვნების დაცვა, მისი შენარჩუნება და კონსერვაცია არის როგორც ეროვნული ვალდებულება, ისე საერთაშორისო ვალდებულება, მათ შორის ევროკავშირთან მიმართებაში, ევროკავშირთან აღებული ვალდებულება DCFTA-s ფარგლებში. არ იქნება გადაჭარბებული თუ ვიტყვით, რომ ამ კუთხით ჩვენ წარმატებით ვასრულებთ ჩვენს ვალდებულებას. კიდევ ერთხელ მინდა დიდი მადლობა გადაგიხადოთ ყველას მობრძანებისათვის, გამოხატოთ ჩემი ღრმა პატივისცემა ჩვენი პარტნიორი ქვეყნების მიმართ, პარტნიორი ორგანიზაციების მიმართ. ასევე დიდი მადლობა მინდა გადაუხადო ორგანიზატორებს, დაცული ტერიტორიების სააგენტოს ხელმძღვანელობას და რა თქმა უნდა ფინანსურ მხარდამჭერებს. დიდი მადლობა, გისურვებთ წარმატებულ სამუშაო დღეს, წარმატებულ სამოწს. მადლობა.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your nice words and welcome. Definitely, as Mr. Nazadze has mentioned, establishment of protected areas has been a very important and priority for the Agency of Protected Areas together with the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture. But still, it would be nothing if there was no support from the Parliament of Georgia and in terms of discussion and consideration of these law projects that have been submitted by our representatives. Therefore, I would like to now ask Ms. Khakhiashvili, the Deputy Chairperson of the Environmental Protection and Natural Resources Committee of the Parliament of Georgia, to welcome the delegates.
მოგესალმებით ყველას, ძალიან დიდი მადლობა დღევანდელი შესაძლებლობისთვის. უბრალოდ არ შემიძლია არ გამოვთქვა ჩემი წუხილი და თანაგრძნობა იმ ოჯახის მიმართ, რომელსაც გუშინ რუსული ოკუპაციის გამო ოჯახის წევრი მოუკლეს საქართველოს ტერიტორიაზე, სოფელ კირბალში, ახალგაზრდა ადამიანი საოკუპაციო რეჟიმის მხრიდან გადმოსული უკანონო დაჯგუფებების მიერ იქნა ადგილზე დაცხრილული და მეორე ადამიანი გატაცებული. მინდა წუხილი გამოვთქვა ამის გამო და ასევე მიუსამძიმრო გარდაცვლილის ოჯახს. და შემიძლია დააგარწმუნოს, რომ საქართველოს ხელისუფლება გააკეთებს ყველაფერს იმისთვის, რომ გატაცებული ადამიანი დროულად დაუბრუნდეს თავის ოჯახს. რუსული ოკუპაციის შედეგები იმ ულამაზესმა მხარემაც იწვნია თავის თავზე, სადაც დღეს ყველა ჩვენთაგანი არის შეკრებილი ბორჯომში. გვახსოვს, რაოდენ დიდი ტრაგედია მოხდა, როდესაც საქართველოს ტყეები მასობრივად იქნა განადგურებული და დაბომბილი და მინდა ძალიან დიდი მადლობა გადაუხადო ბევრ ადამიანს, რომელიც დღეს ჩვენთან ერთად არის დარბაზში, რომლებმაც ძალიან დიდი წვლილი შეიტანეს იმისთვის, რომ საქართველოს ქონოდა შესაძლებლობა აღედგინა თავისი ბუნებრივი სიმდიდრეები, ქონოდა შესაძლებლობა ემუშავა ჩვენს ქვეყანაში და დახმარებოდა ქართულ ხალხს და საქართველოს იმისთვის, რომ მისი ბუნებრივი სილამაზე, სიჯანსაღე ეკოსისტემა ყოფილიყო აღდგენილი და გაჯანსაღებული. უფრო პოზიტიურ ნოტაზე რომ გადავიდეთ, მინდა გამოვთქვა ძალიან დიდი მადლიერება ყველა თქვენგანის მიმართ, რომელმაც დღეს შეძლეს და მოახერხეს საქართველოში ჩამოსვლა. ჩვენთვის ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი არის ის მხარდაჭერა, რომელსაც წლების განმავლობაში განუხრელად ვიღებთ საერთაშორისო პარტნიორებისგან, ჩვენი მეგობრებისგან, ამერიკის შეერთებული შტატებისგან, გერმანიის მთავრობისგან, ასევე არ შემიძლია ხაზი არ გაუსვა შვედეთის მთავრობის დახმარებას, ევროკავშირის დახმარებას, ყველა იმ ორგანიზაციის UNDP-ის არ მინდა ვინმე გამომრჩეს, იმიტომ რომ ძალიან მრავალფეროვანი პარტნიორები გვყავს იმ მნიშვნელოვან საქმეში, რომელიც საქართველოს ბუნების, მისი სიმდიდრის, მისი ეკოლოგიური სიჯანსაღის გაუმჯობესებისთვის იდგმება და დაცული ტერიტორიების სააგენტო ნამდვილად არის ის ორგანიზაცია ქვეყანაში, რომელიც მუდმივად განუხრელად ზრუნავს იმისთვის, რომ ჩვენს ქვეყანაში არსებული ბუნებრივი სიმდიდრეები იყოს სათანადოდ მოვლილი, დაცული და გარდა ამისა მოსახლეობას ჰქონდეს შესაძლებლობა, რომ ისარგებლოს ყველა იმ სიკეთით, რაც დაკავშირებული არის დაცულ ტერიტორიებთან თანაცხოვრებით. ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი არის აღინიშნა აქ უკვე საქართველოს პარლამენტის როლი ამ კუთხით და საქართველოს პარლამენტი ყოველთვის მზად არის იმისთვის, რომ ის ინიციატივები, რომელიც უკავშირდება ჩვენს ქვეყანაში ბუნებრივი სიმდიდრის დაცვას, დაცული ტერიტორიების სისტემის გაუმჯობესებას, არსებული სისტემების დახვეწას და ახალის შექმნას იყოს მაქსიმალურად მხარდაჭერილი. Შემიძლია გითხრათ, რომ მხოლოდ გასულ წელს 6 ახალი დაცული ტერიტორია შეიქმნა საქართველოს პარლამენტის თანხმობით ქვეყანაში და ეს იყო დაკავშირებული ძალიან მნიშვნელოვან გადაწყვეტილებებთან, იმიტომ რომ მოგეხსენებათ, რომ განვითარებად ქვეყანაში, სადაც ძალიან დიდი ყურადღება ენიჭება ეკონომიკური კეთილდღეობას და ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი არის, რომ განვითარება ბიზნესის კუთხით იყოს მხარდაჭერილი, ბალანსი სწორად იყოს დაცული და სწორად იყოს დაფასებული და შეფასებული ის დაცული ტერიტორიების სიკეთეები, რომელიც უკავშირდება ბუნების დაცვას და გარდა ამისა, მოსახლეობასთან სწორი კომუნიკაციით და სწორი თანამშრომლობით იყოს შექმნილი ისეთი პირობები, რომ მხოლოდ არ იყოს ერთი მიმართულებით ყურადღება გამახვილებული და მოსახლეობას ჰქონდეს საშუალება, რომ ასევე იზრუნოს ბუნებაზე და მასთან ერთად მიიღოს ის სიკეთეები, რომელიც ასე აუცილებელია. მნიშვნელოვანი არის ბატონმა იურიმაც აღნიშნა, რომ ქვეყანაში არსებობს სხვადასხვა სახეობის დაცული ტერიტორია და ჩვენ ძალიან ვამაყობთ, რომ შექმნილი არის თრუსოს და არაგვის დაცული ტერიტორია, რომელიც არის მრავალფუნქციური და ეს არის განსაკუთრებით მნიშვნელოვანი იმისთვის, რომ ადგილობრივი მოსახლეობა, ადგილობრივი თვითმმართველობა, დაცული ტერიტორიების სააგენტო და სხვადასხვა აქტორები თანაბრად არიან ჩართული მის მართვაში და ამგვარი გამოცდილება ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი იქნება ჩვენთვის, თქვენგანაც რომ ვისწავლოთ, სამეცნიერო საზოგადოებისგანაც მოვისმინოთ ის ხედვები და თანამედროვე მიდგომები, რომელიც დაეხმარება ჩვენს ქვეყანას იმისთვის, რომ გაუმკლავდეს კლიმატის ცვლილებებით გამოწვეულ სირთულეებს, მოახდინოს საქართველოში არსებული რესურსების მაქსიმალურად ადაპტირება და განსაკუთრებით იქნას დაცული ყველა ის სიკეთე და სიმდიდრე, რომლითაც ჩვენ ყველანი ვამაყობთ. დიდი მადლობა მინდა გითხრათ კიდევ ერთხელ თქვენი დროისთვის, ჩამობრძანებისთვის, თანამშრომლობისთვის და იმედს გამოვთქვამ, რომ მომავალში ჩვენ გვექნება შესაძლებლობა, რომ უფრო მეტი, უფრო მჭიდრო თანამშრომლობა გქონდეს ერთმანეთთან, ზუსტად ხვალ საქართველოს ელოდება ისტორიულ გადაწყვეტილებას, რომელიც უკავშირდება ევროკავშირის მხრიდან საქართველოსთვის წევრობის კანდიდატის სტატუსის მინიჭებას და მე იმედს გამოვთქვამ, რომ დადებითი გადაწყვეტილება იქნება მიღებული და ეს ჩვენ მოგცემს შესაძლებლობას, რომ უკვე ახალი სტატუსით, ახალი ფორმატით ვითანამშრომლოთ თქვენთან, თითოეულ თქვენს ქვეყანასთან და გავაკეთოთ მაქსიმალურად ბევრი იმისთვის, რომ დედამიწა, ჩვენი პლანეტა იყოს კიდევ უკეთესი ადგილი საცხოვრებლად და ჩვენ ყველამ ჩვენი თავი, როლი და ფუნქცია დავინახოთ მის სწორად განვითარებაში. დიდი მადლობა და გისურვებთ წარმატებულ სამიტს.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khatia. Definitely very nice words. And definitely I would like to agree with you that in parallel with establishing and developing protected areas, the support of our donor organizations is highlighted because we would be definitely having challenges not having the support of these organizations. I would like to mention and emphasize the support of government of Germany and people from Germany who has been supporting Georgia from many years in developing protected areas, in equipping the administrations with proper capacity, administrative buildings, visitor centers, tourism shelters, and so on. And this is the support which we highly appreciate and express our gratitude for this. I would like to ask the ambassador of the federal government of Germany, Mr. Ernst Peter Fischer, to welcome us.
Thank you very much, and I think I can still say good morning. Dear Deputy Minister, dear Member of Parliament, Ms. Khatia, if I may say so, dear Ms. Tamar, dear Jeff Morgan, enjoyed our conversation yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, before I talk about protected areas, let me share and add my own voice on behalf of the government of Germany in the condolence to the family of the person who was shot by Russian forces who continued to violate in an unacceptable way the territorial sovereignty and integrity of Georgia, and you know that you have strong partners, symbolized by these flags behind me, to find a solution that will prevent such occurrences in the future. Now to the protected areas. Last night I was quite inspired by conversations that I had, especially with the women from Ukraine. They're somewhere, I don't see them now, and the gentleman from Frankfurt Zoological Society, because the Ukrainian women explained to me that Germany is the main donor and supporter of protected areas in the Ukraine, and that it's very important for Ukraine, including sending soldiers into natural protected areas to reconvalesce, to get better. And I said, well, we happen to be the main supporter of protected areas in Georgia as well. And I'm not sure whether it's true for Armenia, but seems to be something we do as Germany. And they said, why? Why is Germany focusing on this? And in our conversation, we talked about two aspects. One is, everybody knows, Germany has a very bad history. We were a bad state doing horrible things. And after 1945, and after establishing the Federal Republic of Germany in 1948, I think Germans coming from that experience perhaps tended a bit more than others to ask themselves, are we doing the right thing? Is what we are doing ethically, morally okay? We're not more ethical or more moral than anyone else, but perhaps we ask this question more often and grappled with this issue. And I learned also in the course of my career another reason that I think is also valid. Germans are very risk adverse. I don't know if there's any Brits in the room. The saying is, in Britain you can bet on anything, in Germany you can insure yourself against anything. So, but both come together that once you have spared a thought for the issues of sustainability, and once you've understood that we are consuming the resources of the earth and of our atmosphere faster than they are able to regenerate, you understand that it can't go on that way, that we have to change the way we are doing things. It will end in a catastrophe, really, because without a climate that human civilization has grown in, perhaps we can live in another climate, but not with the civilization we know, and without natural resources, which give us everything we need for life. And without them, we have nothing that we need for life. Then you understand the consequence has to be action on sustainability and environmental issues. And so a word about our engagement in Georgia. Already, I believe it was in 1990, so even before the independence of Georgia, the Suko, I think it's pronounced Suko Foundation, from Germany, developed a plan for Georgia's protected areas together with the WWF. And the German government then took on this task, and in the early 2000s, together with Georgia, we developed the Eco-Regional Nature Conservation Plan for the Caucasus, so Georgia and the neighboring countries, because, of course, environmental issues are cross-border issues. Altogether, we have funded about 700,000 hectares worth of protected areas in Georgia, 38 protected areas and 2 biosphere areas. And the main funding instrument has been the Caucasus Nature Fund. We have donated more than 90% of its budget, almost 96 million euros, almost 100 million euros, and I think covering up to 50% of CNF's operational costs. And the Caucasus Nature Fund contributes to about almost 700,000 hectares of Georgia's and Armenia's most precious nature to protect it. So we were there at the beginning. We're still there with the protected areas. And the next step that we are also giving financing to as a German government are the so-called eco corridors in the South Caucasus across national borders, again together with WWF. And the idea is to connect the protected areas with sustainable land use between them. And what I have learned is that the concept is proving to be successful and is working. Germany will continue to work with Georgia in the planning, management, mobilizing Georgian funding, supporting international cooperation of protected areas and nature protection, and also integrating that with a general economic and tourism strategy. And this is all part of a big political goal that is ahead of it, that you mentioned, Deputy Khatya, that is for Georgia to join the European Union. Tomorrow the Commission will give a report. That's not yet the decision. The report will be the basis for the decision. The decision will be reached middle of December by the heads of state and government. So until then, there is still time to do good things and to avoid bad things. Because when the heads of state and government meet in December, put yourself into their shoes and into their minds. They're dealing with Ukraine, they're dealing with Gaza, they're dealing with immigration is the big subject right now in Germany, and so on and so forth. And then they have to decide, should Georgia have candidate status or not? So it's important to have good news and to avoid bad news at that point in time. And we are in favor of Georgia joining. We have formulated that Georgia has a European perspective. Georgia will be a member of the European Union. And why? It's in our interest. We think it's in your interest. I think you think it's in your interest, so we're on the same page. It's in our interest because the European Union has been the basis of our peace, most importantly our peace, then our stability, also our economic prosperity, and our democratic freedoms and our rule of law, governmental systems and societies. And the EU is a protection in a world full of big, Americans always say challenges. I think here it's fair to say problems. The EU protects us against geopolitical risks. The EU protects us against ourselves destroying the environment. The green agenda of the EU is very substantial and important. And the EU also protects us against risks to our societies, risks in the way we live together. And we have a preference to live together as free citizens with freedom rights in democratic states with rule of law institutions. And that's also under a threat in this concerning world we have today. So the EU is our protection against all of that. And with that, I would like to close and hope that soon Georgia will be a member and that we can continue to work together on all the good things, including this green agenda and protecting natural areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Definitely all Georgians, all our friends are looking forward to this status and candidate status, and definitely this is what Georgian people really deserves for so many years. Well, I also would like to ask the UNDP resident representative, Dr. Douglas Webb, also to welcome us. Please. please.
Thank you very much. I'm detecting a certain air of suspense over this announcement tomorrow. I haven't been here more than 2 weeks, but I think there's an air of anticipation, and we will see what happens. So, Yuri Nazadze, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection, Agriculture, Katia Silasani, Deputy Chairperson of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources Committee, Ernst Peter Fischer, Ambassador of Germany. It's my pleasure to represent UNDP here and make some fairly obvious statements to you. One being that protected areas are crucial to global biodiversity conservation, food and water security, improved health and livelihoods, climate change mitigation and adaptation. They are very important. And the Global Biodiversity Framework, adopted only last year in December, calls for their expansion, effective management, improving connectivity, ecological corridors, including calling for conservation of 30% of Earth's lands and waters by the year 2030. And Georgia, along with almost 200 other countries, has agreed to the Global Biodiversity Framework and committed itself to increase the coverage of protected areas to the 30% of its territories by 2030. So I want to commend our Georgian counterparts, Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, Agency of Protected Areas, for the significant progress in this regard, increasing the coverage and widening the network of protected areas. Since 2014, the total area of protected territories has almost doubled and reached over 900,000 hectares, 13% coverage of country's overall territory. This is an incredible expansion. We hope, of course, that this continues. And to support countries around the world to meet and implement their ambitious nature and biodiversity targets under the new Global Biodiversity Framework, UNDP has launched the UNDP Nature Pledge, working across more than 140 countries launched around the world to meet and implement their ambitious nature and biodiversity targets. And this pledge aims to unlock, frankly, billions of dollars of financing from multiple sources across the continents, complemented with on-the-ground support to put nature at the heart of economic opportunities and to align development priorities with a thriving planet. Being active in 170 countries worldwide, UNDP holds years of experience and technical expertise in wildlife and protected areas management. It convenes partners for promoting wildlife conservation, provides policy and capacity development support in protected area system strengthening, indigenous and community managed conservation area strengthening, protected area landscape management, and human wildlife conflict management. A lot of the stuff behind the scenes, frankly, a lot of the grunt work, which is so important. Supporting the development and sustainability of the protected area system is an important part of our work in Georgia that strives to enhance environmental governance and institutional capacity to enable sustainable management and use of natural resources and ensure the conservation of ecosystems. And for the last 15 years, UNDP has collaborated with a range of partners, including the Global Environment Facility, the EU, the Czech government, Swedish government, the Japanese government, to support the protected areas network expansion and improve system effectiveness, introduce modern management approaches, and to enhance the financial sustainability. And thank you for all your support in this work now and going forward. The UNDP GEF Ajara Protected Areas Project is a good example of how the newly established protected area, which was mainly a paper park, that's a new expression to me, paper park, was converted into a functional protected area in reality. And the attitude of the local population was changed from mistrust and opposition to being supportive of conservation and sustainable land use. And a lot of the, I think, technical conversations you're going to have over the next few days is going to look at this transformation from lack of trust, lack of dialogue, lack of engagement, to mutual objective setting and dialogue and working together. And I think a lot of the good practices really talk to this inclusivity and multi-stakeholder engagement. While the expansion of the protected areas is an important prerequisite to better conserve natural and cultural values, at the same time we must ensure that the conservation goals and objectives for each protected area are duly defined and, most importantly, are being achieved through effective management. Through our work with donors and government partners, we must ensure that the protected areas are not only established, but they also deliver for nature and are maintained in good ecological condition. We are ready to continue engaging with our government counterparts, the Ministry and the Protected Area Agency, to push for reforms, to try and shift to a more holistic valuation of the natural environment through advancing environmental justice and the promotion of the environmental rule of law. And I acknowledge the good work we're doing with our support with Germany on this front. We very much hope that through sharing the experiences and best practices in protected areas management, biodiversity conservation, working with communities and sustainable tourism, the summit will enable managing authorities and decision makers to look at the policy issue of how we optimally value protected areas. As and when future financing opportunities come along, all the values of protected areas need to be considered. And I hope technically, managerially and politically we bear that in mind. So I wish you all good luck in your discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Definitely thank you for all the support that UNDP is making for Georgia and from national parks development in our country. Last but not least, I would like to also welcome Mr. Ronald Price, the regional director of the South Caucasus from World Bank, to welcome us as a great supporter of Georgia. Please.
Honorable Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Agriculture, distinguished Member of Parliament, Deputy Chairpersons of Environmental Agencies of Georgia, Excellency, Ambassador of Germany to Georgia, Executive Director of Global Conservation, other distinguished guests, all protocols observed. First, I'd like to say a warm welcome to Georgia and a recognition of how many delegates there are from multiple countries present at this summit today. It is indeed a real pleasure to see this collaboration, this confluence of important actors ready to sit and discuss practical key issues that need to be addressed as we move forward addressing environment and biodiversity issues and focus on protected areas. The World Bank is committed to supporting developing countries on the path to a sustainable future by advancing climate action while eradicating poverty and nurturing shared prosperity. This is boldly represented in the World Bank's updated mission, Ending Poverty on a Livable Planet, which was adopted at the annual meetings in Morocco last month. The World Bank will operationalize this commitment by implementing new global challenge programs to deliver replicable and scalable approaches to critical global challenges. Among them, forest and landscape restoration and the development of protected areas are integral. Protected areas serve not only to safeguard the environment and natural assets, but are also key for economic development and poverty alleviation, which is what the World Bank holds most dear to its heart. Every day, human activity poses an existential threat to our planet's biodiversity. Many plant and animal species are being destroyed at unprecedented rates as a result of deforestation, extractive operations, construction, pollution, and other harmful human activities. Increasingly, biodiversity loss is linked not only with human activity, but also with climate change. Globally, the number of plant and animal species has declined by a staggering 68% since 1970. And this was particularly shocking for me because, of course, that is the year of my birth. To think that there are 68% less plant and animal species in my lifetime was really a sobering thought. This decline also poses a development issue, as ecosystems constitute an enormous share of natural capital. For this reason, the World Bank is supporting clients with policy responses and investments that tackle the biodiversity and climate crises in tandem in order to pave the way for green, resilient, and inclusive development. While governments see protected areas as key to addressing biodiversity loss, protected areas are often overlooked in economic development plans and economic recovery strategies. And we know why that is, because often there is an absence of data. It makes it very difficult to demonstrate protected area tourism's far-reaching stimuli to national and local economies, especially in developing countries. Yet sustainable and inclusive tourism, as we've heard from many speakers on the panel so far, in protected areas is an effective tool for handling the dual challenge of economic development and conserving biodiversity. Research shows that tourism triggers direct and indirect economic impacts in local economies, which in turn generate rates of return on government spending between $6.20 and $28.20 for every public dollar spent. The World Bank has a long-standing commitment and a broad portfolio of investments in forests, landscapes, and protected areas in Europe and Central Asia to protect biodiversity and ecosystems and to ignite economic development. The World Bank's Regional Resilient Landscapes Central Asia Program, or RESILAND, invests $300 million in landscape restoration and building climate resilience with a focus on transboundary areas in Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. We hope that the RESILAND Central Asia program will serve as a blueprint for similar investments in the South Caucasus, focusing on landscape and habitat restoration, ecosystem service delivery, and ecotourism. Further, we're also working closely with our South Caucasus partners as part of the EU-funded EU for Environment program that aims to expand the Emerald network of protected areas to conserve wildlife and promote sustainable interaction between people and nature. We know that merely setting aside sites and calling them protected areas is admirable but insufficient for development impact. Protected areas require adaptive management as well as extensive monitoring and evaluation, which is why the World Bank invests and supports capacity development of our client countries in the design and management planning for protected areas, setting standards for sustainable ecotourism, establishing bioindicators of progress, as well as facilitating meaningful involvement of local communities in conservation and sustainable economic use of natural assets in various types of protected areas. In closing, I wish to thank the government of Georgia for the trust and the opportunity it afforded the World Bank to support the formation of the system of Georgia's protected areas years ago at the turn of the century. We are pleased to see remarkable progress since those times and look forward to our further strengthened engagement. Formation of Georgia's protected area system was carried out with the support of the Global Environmental Facility then. It is an example and permits me to underscore the importance of partnership in this work that we do. No single government, development partner, private sector, or civil society organization can effectively implement this agenda alone. The scale of the biodiversity and climate challenge is large, and effective management positively impacts us all as global citizens. The World Bank has shown its commitment to being a partner of consequence around the globe, and this will only increase with our renewed focus on ending poverty on a livable planet. It has been my privilege to address you, and I wish you every success in your deliberations over the coming days. May you have fruitful collaboration now and into the future in preserving biodiversity and ensuring long-term survival of all life, both human and natural. Didi Madloba.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roland. Definitely your presence here, it's an illustration for our country that our international society and international organizations are supporting Georgia, and it's a very big privilege for us. So now I would like to move to the next stage of our summit. Just I wanted to stand and continue with the presentation of the countries who are here, and and already the welcome panel speakers addressed that we have more than 15 countries presenting here. Unfortunately, I will not have time to express all the names of our distinguished delegates, but I would like to mention the countries which are here with us today and to discuss most important issues regarding to protection of biodiversity, conservation, biodiversity monitoring. So, of course, we have guests from the United States of America, from Germany, Armenia, Iran, Turkey, Albania, Korea, Romania, Bulgaria, Montenegro, United Kingdom, Ukraine, and North Macedonia. Also, I would like to highlight the guests from the Colorado State University, Mr. Jim Barborak and Aaron Hicks, who will be with us during these 3 days, and they will support and assist our team leaders, our park directors, to advance the protection of protected areas, to increase their capacities in terms of leadership, and to share their best practices, which is, I would say, more than 10 years, 20 years experience in managing protected areas, both from academic and practical viewpoint. I would like to give my floor to Jeff Morgan, the Executive Director of Global Conservation, our long-standing partner and supporter of Borjomi National Park and Raja National Park. We are really pleased to have him, a good friend of nature, for our nature of Georgia. And really, thank you for your support throughout the years. Please.
Okay, welcome everybody. Does everybody have the translation okay that needs it? Because this is going to go pretty quickly. Anyways, I wanted to thank you for having us, but especially Caucus Nature Fund. Without Caucus Nature Fund as the supporting this whole country and its protected areas, global conservation wouldn't even be able to work here. So I want to thank David Morrison and the rest of the groups that invited us here and helped us engage. Our work at Global Conservation is a very small part of nature conservation. We're focused on protection, park and wildlife protection. That's why the group here are park directors, park protection managers, and we're just a small part of the big picture that has to be accomplished in each country, but it's a very important part and one today that is falling down. We don't have the money for protection. Many governments are getting out of protection. We don't want to support rangers with guns. Somebody could get killed. It's high risk. And this is a big problem. NGOs, big NGOs, I have to say, like WWF or TNC or CI, they're getting out of protection as well. It's too risky for their brand. So that's causing, along with RED, the reduced emissions of deforestation, that has failed. So we have very little money that we thought we would have today to protect the parks that we have. Everybody's talking about 30 by 30. Let's have 30% of Georgia and protected areas. Great idea, but we have to protect the 13% that we already have, and that is we're just starting. Every country, Georgia is much more advanced than most countries, and most countries where we work, the parks are failing. And I have to say, the Ukraine, the war is destroying many of the parks and taking the rangers to the front lines. We're losing thousands of rangers from Ukraine today as we speak. Every day on Facebook, we're losing another friend. And these type of things are just, big picture issues. Okay, we'll talk about, so what we're going to talk about today is what we call global park defense. And we're trying to bring this program, it's a very standard, pretty understandable program using technology, systems, and training to every park that we can, primarily the best parks that are in the developing countries that don't have the ability. You'll see we're working here in this area where we're talking today, but we also, Jim Barborak, and our last comment was in Tikal, and so we're bringing this together in Asia. These are countries that are losing their forests, losing their marine protected systems. These are the current parks where we're working, and then the assessments that we have going. So Mustafa Gonen, where are you, Mustafa? Is our director of Eurasia and Eastern Europe. And if anyone wants to engage with global conservation, please work with Mustafa. He's excellent, and you'll enjoy knowing this man. I've known him now for 15 years, I want to say, worked together many times. This is the problem. So if you look at Malaysia, Indonesia, all these countries in 20 years have burned down. So we don't have any forests left. We're working now in this place, Damai, the last forest this is looser ecosystem. Otherwise, it's been cut down for palm oil primarily, and to make money for the world economy, great. But we have to leave some green. Usually what they're doing is just leaving a little green on the top of the mountain, very steep area that you can't put palm oil. The rest is cut. So what we got to do is, this is a typical park. The threats facing a typical park, this is in Peru. The outside the park is complete disaster. Everything's burning down. Inside the park, it's also burning. So this is what we deal with every day in our work. What we're trying to do is provide a framework, a methodology, and a solution that can put some technology using satellites, using trail cameras that you can get real-time information, and getting the rangers organized on a system. And we really are focused on smart patrolling, and which Georgia's a leader in this now. Getting communications. Most parks where we're working have no communications. They can't talk to each other because, so we're working on using satellite technology like Starlink from Elon Musk now, advanced surveillance, demarcating the borders of the parks around the communities where the community stops and the park begins. Very critical, educational, and then working with the communities on the protection. I'll just give you one example. In Thailand, which is one of our most important projects we ever had, you can see outside the park there's no forest. This is all mostly rice. Okay, we're working in Toplan, and they were having thousands of people coming in to cut the trees. It was called rosewood, and these rangers, we worked with them to build a forest. Also, the elephants and tigers in the forest were being killed. But you can see here the fires. This is the typical day in the life of Thailand, but we're working on the last forest in eastern Thailand. They were going into it by thousands of people, cutting the wood out and hauling it on their back, okay, and using these little carts. So we helped the government of Thailand organize with military to fight these guys, and these are actually these are carts. You can see the tires from just one ranger station. These are the confiscated wood, and we arrested over 1,000 people in the park in 5 years. So it was a very successful because the government of Thailand was hardworking, and also they had cellular service, so we could put cameras around the entire park and see everyone coming into the park in real time. So you can see here, this is a smart, what we call smart, where we can identify who we arrested, what was confiscated, and everything is cataloged. Every arrest is cataloged. And these people, the second time they come back in, they're going to jail. So, they get a 1 chance or 2 chance, but the second time, and you can see the cameras, how powerful they are. We can see them coming in, when they came in, what direction they're going, and then the rangers can be deployed to arrest them. You'll see the amount of supplies. They're coming into the forest for 2 to 3 weeks and stealing the wood, cutting the wood, and carrying it out on their back. So these are just typical arrests, getting 20 people arrested and all their supplies, and then the wood that they're stealing out of the park. Another interesting thing, we were talking with Jessica Graham the other day, is putting GPS tracker in the wood, leaving the wood for them to pick up, and then they catch. They can find where it went. So we tracked from the park. We tracked out of the park down here to the warehouse and caught this guy, Chinese middleman, that was buying all this wood. And so these are the types of intelligent-led operations that we need to have to protect our parks. Park rangers today, they don't have weapons, okay? Most of the places we work, they don't have law enforcement training. They're not law enforcement officers, they're park rangers. And so without the support of the police, possibly the military, and other the enforcement groups, they really have a hard time to do any of this work. And we're making it as hard as possible. We're passing laws where the ranger, they have to have the person at the court within 24 hours, or he doesn't go to court. They make the range so difficult. Getting the intelligence, most of these crimes are done by a few people. And it's in a syndicate. This is syndicates between Africa, going to Vietnam, China, Hong Kong, and the world needs to really get up to this, because they're drug syndicates working in wildlife trade, illegal wood, and so this group, and these are the type of people that we work with every day. So this is a typical ranger station command center in Thailand. What we could do here, this is 1 year, you can see almost total patrol coverage of the park. This is one of the best maps this is the type we look for at every park. We want to see at the end of the year, the park is patrolled well. Okay, that means that you never know when the rangers are going to come in. And so you're using cameras on all the trails and the roads, because we have the technology today, but we're also getting the coverage of the patrols. Many parks, the people sit in their ranger station, they never go on patrol because they don't have any fuel, they don't have any food, and they're having a hard time to get it done. This is a good chart also. You can see when we started in Thailand, we had a few arrests, but then we got organized, boom, we started getting more arrests, and 438 arrests in 1 year. Then you see it go down. That's a sign of success. So we don't want to see more and more arrests, we want to see it drop. So that's important. Training, I can't express enough how powerful. Thailand has its own university for forestry and rangers. So they put in hundreds of people come through there. They come out pretty well equipped and trained. That's a big win up for doing it. How do we measure success? Well, how many alerts did we get from the community telling us, hey, there's guys going in hunting, or from a camera in the forest? How many miles were patrolled by vehicle, by foot? How many interdictions did we have? How many arrests and confiscations did we have? How many of these were prosecuted and successful? And then we do public relations. This is so important, because you catch a guy once, or a woman, could be a woman. You catch it once, they probably already did it 100 times before. They were hunting for 100, they killed 100 animals, you caught them for one. So we have to make sure when we catch them that they are prosecuted, and then it's in the newspaper. We arrested them, and Live On at Borjomi has been very successful getting a couple people prosecuted and in jail. It goes into the newspaper, and everyone reads about it, and so that's very powerful. The other thing that we support are scientific baseline studies, so that when we start the program, we know how many bear, how many wolf, how many lynx there are in the ecosystem, and then at the end of 5 years, we do another baseline to see, did it improve. In Thailand, we were lucky. The loggers weren't killing tigers directly. They were going to illegally log, but in the meantime, they killed all the prey. they were killing the tigers' food, the deer to eat. And so the tigers, they were under threat because of their prey was being destroyed. And we were so lucky now, 3 years later, we had our first cubs. So this is the first time we've seen baby tigers in the Top Lawn National Park in 10 years. So this is a very good indication. And Global Park Defense is a system. So we're really trying to get a replicable system that every park can put in the same thing, that with the using drones, using satellites to check, especially for fire, getting fire alerts quickly so we could stop the fires quickly. I was so thrilled. We're the Korean delegation here. 안녕하세요. We're so thrilled. The Koreans are donating 4 fire trucks to Georgia this week, and it's just a fantastic cooperation. Thank you so much. The power of satellites today is so good. We can see deforestation of the size of this stage now every day. So using the system, you can monitor Georgia, all the forests, and you can see who's cutting trees where. It's available today. We can help you do that. So any park wants to monitor using the satellite. 1, it's free. You can use Global Forest Watch. And 2, we can help you then zoom in and analyze real. The drones have also been useful for looking at things like logging camps, because far from the road, maybe 5 miles from the road, no one knows it, no one can see. But with the drone now, we can see these types of things. So anyways, that's just showing a few examples of the technology, of the systems, and the training that we're putting in the Global Parks Defense for all the parks, many of the parks here. And if you're interested, please talk to Mustafa and myself, because we can help you in your park as well. Thank you very much. Mike Sutton is our next speaker. Mike Sutton is the chair of the board of Global Conservation, so he's my boss. So if I do a bad job, you let him know. Mike has been, he's the president of the Goldman Environmental Prize, which is a prestigious award given out to 6 people every year that are the heroes of saving our planet. Each awardee receives $250,000, no strings attached, for that success. And it's a very prestigious award that he manages with a world group of advisors. Mike previously has worked for the Monterey Bay Aquarium, Yellowstone National Park, and I'm missing one. Everglades, many national parks, so he has great national park experience. Let me introduce Michael Sutton.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. I don't think anybody can be Jeff's boss, really. It's an impossible chore. But in any case, it's wonderful to be here. Wonderful to see and experience so many government leaders and distinguished ambassadors recognizing that the 2 most important assets of any country are its people and its natural capital, as in national parks and protected areas. That's just wonderful. The Goldman Environmental Prize, for those of you who have not heard, is the Nobel Prize for the Environment. And we give 6 prizes every year to grassroots activists who've accomplished significant things for the environment worldwide. We are honored to have one of our Goldman Prize winners here today, Anna Lisowska from North Macedonia. She won the Goldman Prize several years ago for protecting Mavrovo National Park in North Macedonia. So I hope you have a chance to get to know Anna while you're here. I want to take us back today to our roots, to the beginning of the protected areas movement, where it all began. 151 years ago this year, Yellowstone National Park was established in the United States, the first of its kind. I was privileged to be a ranger in Yellowstone, a very, very special place. Yellowstone National Park is nearly 1 million hectares in size, 900,000 hectares. It's a very special place that protects unique resources like geothermal features, hot springs, geysers, and so forth. It protects places like the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. This is why it's called Yellowstone, this volcanic rock that is yellow in color. It's a very, very special place. How many of you have been to Yellowstone National Park? Ah, a few. Well, you are all invited. We would love to have you come to Yellowstone and enjoy the place. It's a spectacular place. It's really about 6 national parks all in one. It's very, very large. We've learned a lot about how to manage the natural resources of Yellowstone. The region encompasses 2 national parks, Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park, rivers, mountains, forests. It's a place of unparalleled natural beauty that gives rise to many, many opportunities for recreation, for outdoor recreation. Millions of people every year come to the Yellowstone area. They come to hike, they come to backpack, they come to fly fish, one of my personal pastimes. It's become very, very popular. When I was a ranger in Yellowstone, there were 2 million people a year visited the park. Now, it's nearly 4 million people a year. Fortunately, Yellowstone is not just a national park, but it's an entire ecosystem. There are 6 national forests around the national park, Tetons National Park and Yellowstone both. This is referred to as the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem. The park and associated areas protect the entire ecosystem. And we've learned a lot about what it takes to protect Yellowstone. Yellowstone is full of what we call charismatic megafauna. Animals like moose and elk and bears and buffalo and so forth. Now, many of them were shot and almost rendered extinct in the last century. The grizzly bear numbers declined. They were killed. And the elk population declined as well. The elk today are abundant and have come back, but many of the animals, the gray wolf was destroyed. The population was extirpated from Yellowstone many years ago in the 19th century, but now they have been restored. So Yellowstone is a laboratory for how we can manage natural resources in a more thoughtful and effective manner. Because of its sheer size, the buffalo is another example of this. The buffalo were reduced to fewer than 100 animals in Yellowstone in the last century. Now they're about 5,000. So Yellowstone gives us hope that it is possible to recover many of these species from overhunting and poaching and near extinction in the last century. Today, Yellowstone is the American Serengeti, the place where we can still see wildlife as it was in the last century. Well, all of that means that Yellowstone is not only a place, an island, but it's a complex natural system of migratory corridors. The animals go to the high country in the summer, they come down from the high country in the winter, and they spend the winter around the geothermal basins and other natural areas in the wintertime. Yellowstone was created in 1872. The National Park Service in the U.S. was not created until 1916. So in the intervening 50 years or so, the park was patrolled by the military. Now you've heard Jeff and others talk about the importance of the military in protecting national parks all over the world. It's still true today. These are Army scouts in Yellowstone patrolling in the 1870s on skis in the wintertime. But in those days, the Army stopped poaching throughout the park. This photograph was taken in 1894 of Army officers with the heads of poached buffalo from the middle of Yellowstone. And it was publicized all over the U.S. and helped lead to the creation of the National Park Service. So we have a long history of poaching in Yellowstone. Today, the threats are different. There are added threats. Climate change means that wildfires are more common today than ever before. And we have to fight fires in addition to all the other threats to places like Yellowstone. Agriculture in the region now poses a threat to Yellowstone as well and its wildlife. So it's not just what's happening inside the park, it's what's happening around the park, as Jeff just indicated, that is important. The logging and clear-cutting of the forest right up to the park boundary in Yellowstone. In fact, the end of sale markers, the Forest Service end of timber sale markers, and the Yellowstone National Park boundary markers are on the same trees sometimes. There is very little buffer around the national park. And we see this all over the world as well. Oil and gas drilling in the region threatens not only contributes to climate change, but threatens the national park itself. So there are many, many threats to Yellowstone. The development of cities around the parks, the global pandemic of COVID made people leave the cities, and where did they go? They all went to rural areas like the area around Yellowstone. So the tremendous immigration of people to the natural areas like the areas around Yellowstone is a problem for the park. And one of the things that does is increase wildlife-human interactions. So you have grizzly bears in neighborhoods threatening the people who live there. As a result, grizzly bear mortalities have been increasing over the last several years as grizzly bears encounter more people and they threaten people. Grizzly bears are protected wildlife in the US, but if they threaten people or children or property, they're shot. And so it's still a problem today. It's an increasing problem as human-wildlife interactions increase. The construction of more and more homes in the areas where wildlife migrate is a problem in the Yellowstone area as well. So many, many problems. The development around Yellowstone is so great. These areas are growing by more than 4% per year. The Bozeman area in Montana, Jackson Hole in Wyoming, these cities are growing, and these are very conservative areas politically within the United States. So it is very difficult to implement slow growth or low growth ordinances. So these cities are growing, and that poses a threat to the national parks and protected areas as well. So the question is, what do we want for the future of Yellowstone? Do we want Yellowstone to be bordered by high-rises and cities and homes and development, or do we want it to be protected? And what do we want in the future? More and more people are visiting Yellowstone and the Tetons, hopefully some of you, but when you go there in the summer, this is what you see. Millions of people enjoying the park. That's a good thing because it builds support for protecting national parks, but it also has to be controlled to make sure we're not loving the parks to death. And that's what we're doing today in a place like Yellowstone. We may well, the US government may well have to impose capacity controls on Yellowstone. You may have to schedule your visit when you go to Yellowstone in the future because we don't want to love these areas to death, and that is what is happening increasingly today. So the question is, well, as we put more and more wildlife, as development pressures increase and wildlife are concentrated, they're subject to disease. So that adds to the stress on wildlife populations. So it's a big question. What future do we want to pass these protected areas along to the next generation, to our children? Do we want development or do we want wilderness and wildlife? We've learned a lot over the last 150 years in places like Yellowstone of how to protect and restore national parks and protected areas. The first thing you have to do is promote an informed public discourse about these areas. And so publications like the Mountain Journal, which is an online publication, with the decline of newspapers and traditional media, social media is more and more important. Facebook and Twitter and X, as it's called today, and Instagram become more important. Online publications like this, promoting an informed public dialogue about these areas, about the threats to national parks and protected areas is very, very important. We've got to engage the community. We've got to engage government officials in a dialogue about how to protect these areas. We learned long ago that protected areas are not islands. They're part of a human community, and you've got to engage the surrounding communities in protecting national parks. We've learned that local people and local communities, and especially indigenous people, are integral to the protection for national parks. You cannot manage a national park as an island. It's part of a human community and a natural community around it, and we have to take that into account. There are many examples of that all over the world, including right here in Georgia. Most of all, Our experience in Yellowstone has taught us that nature is resilient and has the ability to recover if we manage it properly, if we manage it carefully. There are more grizzly bears in Yellowstone now than ever before. When I was a ranger there 30 years ago, it was very difficult to see a grizzly bear. Now, if you go to Yellowstone, you probably will see a grizzly bear. The wolves were gone from Yellowstone when I was a ranger there. Now they're back. We brought them back. They're playing a role in the ecosystem that they should, and the ecosystem is healthier because of that. So all of that offers us hope that well-managed protected areas can offer nature-based solutions to climate change, that 30 by 30 is not only possible, that is to say the goal to protect 30% of the planet by the year 2030, not only possible, but it's essential to our survival on Earth, and that gives us hope. Thank you very much, and I hope you can visit Yellowstone soon.
Jim, you're up next. Okay, thank you, Michael. Yellowstone's just one of our many national parks in the United States. One of the things that I learned as in all these places that I work, that we're working, is that a national park in the United States is very different from national parks in other countries. For instance, in Yellowstone, the entire box is the same zoning, same regulation for the entire park. In a place like Ukraine, we work in Carpathian National Nature Park, they have 4 or 5 zoning. So the park has a core area, very small part is a core area. Then you have a human use zone, agricultural zone, multi-use zone. So for me, that is not a national park. It's very confusing for me. I don't understand. I mean, you can have a railroad and build a new highway in the national park. So for me, it's just, I don't understand. If you're going to create a national park, make it the same regulation for the whole park and protect it. Anyways, that's my thing. I want to introduce Jim Barborak, who is way out of his usual pond. He speaks fluent Spanish. He hosted our last summit in Tikal National Park in Guatemala. And we brought everyone from Latin America, from South America, Central America, together there. And he did the whole thing in Spanish. So I was so impressed. But Jim Barborak is now a senior advisor to the Colorado State University Warner School of Natural Resources. He was formerly co-director with Ryan, and he and Aaron Hicks are here for this summit to run the show and give as much training and knowledge as possible. So, Jim Barborak.
Thank you very much, Jeff. First of all, I would like to thank Jeff and Global Conservation for confiding in our team from Colorado State University's Center for Protected Area Management to, like last year in Guatemala, to help facilitate some of the participatory sessions we will be holding tomorrow and the following day, where we hope to get input from all of you about what are your shared challenges and what are some of the solutions that we have encountered to confront the many challenges, threats, and hazards faced by protected areas of all categories, of all governance types around the world. So for me, yes, I am 11 time zones from home, but it took us 2 nights and parts of 3 days to get here, but it's wonderful to be in Georgia for the first time. One of the things that I most enjoy about working around the world, and this is the 30th country I've worked in, is the opportunity to meet some of our students that have participated in the many short courses which my center gives. In addition to the academic programs of my university, our center focuses on capacity building and a new term that we use more, capacity sharing, with protected area professionals, rangers, technicians, protected area directors, and people from central offices and regional offices of protected area and tourism agencies around the world. As we work to confront the challenges which have already been mentioned by our speakers this morning, I would like to thank our good friends from the government of Georgia, our colleague, the ambassador of Germany, and the colleagues from the World Bank and from UNDP for their great opening comments, which I think helped to set the stage for what we're going to be doing over the next 3 days, where we're going to be talking about what are those shared challenges and what are some good practices in dealing with those challenges in the protected areas around the world which already exist, which it was mentioned in Georgia, that's 13% of your national territory. And imagine the challenge we face if in just 7 years, we hope to go from 13 to 30 in the case of Georgia, and in many other countries, the current percentages are even lower. So it's a huge collective challenge of the global community of conservation practitioners and development practitioners to try to meet these ambitious global goals for conservation. So all of you have received the agenda in Georgian and in English. And all I want to say briefly about the agenda is we're going to try to mix it up. We're going to have a series of keynote presentations, such as those we already had this morning by Jeff and Michael. More of those today. We're going to have country presentations by individuals talking about the status of protected areas in West Asia and this part of Europe. And then we're also going to have, in addition to that, some tables set up where representatives from the different countries are going to share their experience in protected area management. Tomorrow, Jeff and his team have entrusted to Erin Hicks, my colleague from CSU, and myself, along with a team of assistants, 8 Georgians and 8 individuals from other countries here, in which tomorrow morning we're going to elicit input from all of you regarding what are your goals for this event, what are your biggest single management challenges in the protected areas you represent, and then also looking for responses, looking for good practices, best practices, and case studies on how you have successfully dealt with those challenges. So we're going to be sharing this in breakout groups tomorrow morning. Those 16 of you that are going to assist us as facilitators, we will be meeting at lunch to make sure everyone has clear instructions. But tomorrow is the day when all of you are going to get a chance to participate in sharing your lessons learned on good practice in protected area management. In addition, as part of the program, we're going to have a wonderful field visit to Borjomi National Park and many opportunities to share with your colleagues. One thing I recommend you all do, as someone who very often works in events like this, we have people from a lot of countries, it's very easy to just stay in your comfort zone and sit at the same breakfast table with people you already know. What we really recommend is that you take the time to try to reach out and even trying to deal with language barriers to meet your colleagues from all of the other countries who might share valuable lessons on how they're dealing with shared challenges. So don't just talk to the colleagues you already know. Please make an effort to reach out to everyone else so that we become one big extended international conservation community of practice during the coming 3 days. Again, thank you very much, Jeff, for the invitation to participate. I am very much out of my language comfort zone and cultural comfort zone. I just came from Brazil the past week, where I was meeting with protected area managers in that huge country, the world's most biodiverse, dealing with very similar issues. How do we deal with risk and hazards in our protected areas? Fire, risk to tourists, risk to visitors, risk to people who live in those protected areas. And one of the things I've learned after a 49-year career in working around the world is that although the languages might change, the threats and challenges and solutions usually are quite common to the types of issues we deal with in protected areas. So again, welcome to all of you. Look forward to working with you. Please look through your agenda for the details on what we're going to be doing. And again, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Thank you.
Well, if you read the agenda, I think our next stop is lunch. So everybody just relax, have a break. Like he said, please be friendly, meet some other people. We have bilingual people here. Grab them by the arm like Tago. What did he say? What did he mean? Help me. And we'll get the communication going. And thank everybody for coming. And thank you, Georgia.
Thank you, Jeff, for helping. The lunch is on the first floor. პირველ სართულზე გთხოვთ მობრძანდით ლანჩისთვის და ერთ საათში შეგვიძლია გავაგრძელოთ. მადლობა.